Here we are again, and welcome back to me, Audrina Lane, and our next chapter of my first book, Where Did Your Heart Go? We're now on chapter 23, and again, because it's a bit of a long one, it'll be in two parts. So here's part one. I woke up to music blaring away and coming from Charlie's room. Looking at my clock, it was only 6:30. I had to admit she was definitely dedicated to her dancing, as I realised it was Take My Breath Away that was on continuous loop. By 7:30 she was finished and polishing off some toast before college. "How are things going?" I asked. "Oh great, the song's amazing and I'm hoping our routine is going to go as well. It's quite tricky in places." "Well, you know there'll be at least 3 people in the audience who'll think it's fantastic." "Mum, would it be okay for Mitchell to come and visit this weekend?" "Yes, is he coming on the train, as I don't mind picking him up," I replied. "I'll find out," Charlie replied as she reached for her phone. "I'll text him now." Oh, how easy life was now with mobile phones and text messaging, instead of having to wait 3 or 4 days for a reply to a letter or that precious once-a-week phone call. "Oh, he's got a motorcycle, he's going to come down on that, he just needs to know where we live, so he can put it into his sat-nav." I watched as she tapped away again and everything was organised for the weekend. "We're practising after school again tonight, so I'll be home later if it's okay for Julia to come over and stay," she asked as she picked up her bag. "Yes, that's fine, I'll pick up some stuff for tea then." When she'd left, I headed back to my room to retrieve the diary and was about to set it down on her bedside table when I decided I needed one more trip down memory lane before work. Friday the 5th of August 1988. As the sun was still shining, I was sunbathing in the garden when I heard the sound of an engine pulling into the drive and realised that James had arrived at last. He'd ended up working the morning shift from 7 till 2, so it was already late afternoon when I finally spotted him coming towards me. I stood up and ran towards him as he swept me up in his arms and I kissed him for all I was worth. "It's been too long," he breathed as he ran his hands through my hair and at the same time sent shivers down my spine. "I've missed you," I replied as I trailed small kisses over his face and neck. "Steady now, remember what happened the last time we were in a garden?" he joked. "How could I forget?" I replied, blushing at the memories we had made in the moonlight on his parents' lawn. "Ah, forgot to say, my dad found one of your stockings draped over the apple tree the following day." "Oh God," I replied, blushing like mad. "It's okay, he just gave it back to me with a rather knowing look on his face. Anyway, he thinks you're great, and Mum does too." "I'll still feel embarrassed when I see them next," I said. "Oh, my dad's cooking barbecue later, and I'll warn you now it's normally burnt offerings," as I gathered my book and empty glass and we walked back towards the house. "When will you get your exam results?" he asked as we sat in the kitchen with another cold drink. Next week. I'm a bit nervous. I've already got a place at college, so I don't mind as long as they aren't dreadful." "You'll be fine. Anyhow, what about you?" I asked as I watched a huge grin light up his face. "I'll be a fireman in September," he finished. "I've already handed my notice in at work, so my last day will be at the end of August, and then I start properly on Monday the 5th of September. Catching his hand in mine, I pulled him close and gave him a long kiss until we were interrupted by the sound of my mum heading through to the garden with plates and cutlery. "We'll be eating soon," she said. "Would you like a cold beer or wine?" "Oh, beer would be great, Mrs. M," he replied. "We're just going to pop upstairs and get changed," I said, James right behind me. In the bedroom, I changed into my long sundress and pulled my hair out of my ponytail so it dropped down over my neck and back. He pulled me in close and breathed in. "Oh, you smell gorgeous. Coconut suntan cream," he murmured. "Glad you like it," I replied as I reached up and gave him another kiss. "I can't wait to see you in your uniform. You can be my hero any time." James laughed as we heard Mum shouting for us as he caught me up in his arms and then slung me over his shoulder. "Fireman's lift for you, young lady," as he carried me downstairs. I admired his back and bum, knowing I would get to stroke them later tonight. The evening flew by in the garden. Mum and Dad were eager to hear about James's new job, and they started talking about the hospital radio, and for once the food was not burnt. They left us in the garden and headed inside. It was a new moon that lit the sky, and the two of us as I crawled into James's lap and we kissed until I shivered with longing for more. "Let's go in," I breathed softly as I nibbled his ear and neck. Once in my room, we soon lost our clothes and were naked on my single bed, pressed tightly together in our embrace. I guess we'd both been apart for too long, as our love-making was urgent and quick, but still satisfying as we lay lost in the moment, linked together. After hearing my parents go to bed, we dozed for a bit, then I woke up and decided to wake James with my tongue and mouth. I crawled under the duvet and found what I was looking for, and carefully ran my tongue over its length. James stirred but lay still, so I continued and took him all into my mouth, and this time I didn't stop until I had the warmth and taste of him sliding down my throat and sticky on my lips. James pulled me up into his arms, and the look in his eye said it all. "That was the best," he murmured as he kissed me. "But you taste salty." "Now I taste of you, and it's wonderful," I replied, grinning at him. My eyes were sparkling with feelings of love. "Well, I believe it's my turn now," he replied as he made me lie down and then started to trail kisses over my already quivering body before his lips reached my special place. Breathing in, I closed my eyes and gave myself completely to the sensations his lip and tongue were creating. From the centre of me they radiated out in ripples that grew stronger and stronger until I arched my back and, holding his head in my hands, I came, shuddering under his touch. "I love you till the end of time," I said, as we curled up together. "I love you too," he murmured, as we slept until my alarm sounded, and I needed to creep down to the spare room. Even that short stretch of time we spent apart was almost too much to bear, as I wished my parents were as liberal as James's were. Saturday the 6th of August. It was Carnival Day in town, and for once not raining. We arranged to meet Sarah and Chris at his flat, and after we caught up on each other's news, we took the short walk into town, which was buzzing with people. We were able to find a good vantage point near the market house to view the carnival parade, as we waited for the sound of the first marching band. It was a corny spectacle of tacky flower-covered lorries and plenty of children dressed in various outfits, waving and throwing sweets to the crowds. Some of them had water pistols, and we tried to avoid the water arches but failed. But it didn't matter, as the atmosphere of the day was so full of fun it was infectious. We followed the crowd towards the riverbank and the small array of funfair rides that were set up on one side. On the other side were traders selling in the usual stores. Being with Chris and Sarah meant the guys got incredibly competitive at the various games and tried to prove their worth on the coconut shy, shooting games and hooking ducks. Sarah and I soon held an assortment of cuddly animals they had won for us. Then we went for a spin on the waltzers and discovered it was almost impossible to kiss while spinning around, but it was fun trying. After hot dogs and donuts, we wandered along to the Hope and Anchor pub to find a table in the crowds. James fetched us all a drink and we sat and talked. Chris had applied to join the army and was off for an interview for that. If he got it, he'd have to go off for training in Colchester, so I understood completely the look of sorrow that flashed over the eyes of Sarah at the thought of losing him. As the sun sank and showered red and gold over the placid winding river, we decided to call it a night and head home. After leaving Sarah at Chris's flat, we continued further along the road. "This reminds me of the first time you walked me home from the swimming pool," I said, looking up at James and seeing him smile. "Do you know how much courage it took for me to ask you? I was so worried that you wouldn't like me." "Not like you," I breathed. "I was already in love with you at that point," I replied. "Or at least I thought I was. But I know I am now. 100% prime time in love with you," I said, quoting some lines from Top Gun. "Show me the way home," James responded, laughing as he pulled me into his arms and we stopped for a kiss. "If it wasn't so late, we could have watched the film again, as I bought the old rental copy from the video store," I said, laughing. "I watch it at least once a week." "Christ, you're almost as bad as me then," he responded with a grin. "James, you big stud, take me to bed or lose me forever," I said, as I pulled him into my arms and, reaching on my tiptoes, planted a long kiss on his lips. We were at my house before we knew it, and after saying goodnight to my parents, we went to my room. As it was late, I ducked into the spare room and waited for them to go to sleep before I crept up to the attic staircase and a night of shared passion. I will be back with more shared passion in a few minutes. Don't go away.